This is Radio 97. It's Wayne and Jess for breakfast, and that music, Jess, means that it's time to talk all things law.
Love Thursdays because Priala Legal, they're a boutique property law firm located at the northern end of the Gold Coast, Wayne, where Despina Priala is the principal, who's practiced in property and commercial law for over 25 years. Her top end of town legal expertise spans from developer contracts and project work, residential conveyancing, as well as prestige property transactions to provide the very best to local, interstate and even international clients. So we welcome her this morning. Good morning to you, Despina.
Good morning, Jess. Good morning, Wayne. Thank you.
Despina. Look, another interesting topic to talk about today.
Yes, it's a really interesting topic. So I'd like to talk about how we can actually secure our personal assets and why we should do that.
So usually we have a mortgage and we secure the interest when it comes to land, but this extends to personal assets.
That's right. So personal assets, I'm talking about cars, boats, planes, caravans, camper vans, plant and equipment, machinery with businesses, those types of personal assets. So obviously anything that's not land can be classed pretty much as personal assets. So if we can talk about land for a second so we can try and have the listeners understand where I'm coming from and why it's so important. So when you get a loan from a bank or a private person to buy property, that particular personal bank will want to secure that loan naturally, because if you can't repay the loan, then they need their interest secured to then take possession of the land and be able to sell the land to then repay the loan. So the banks and all private people that lend money are considered secured creditors, and that's all normal, and we all understand how land and mortgages work and how that's secured. But what happens if we're talking about personal assets? So we're talking about, as I said before, cars, plant machinery, boats, caravans. What happens there? So there is a national register called the Personal Property Securities Register, and it is national, so it applies around Australia, every state. And there's a legislation, of course, national legislation called the Personal Property Securities Act, which came into force quite a few years ago. And that particular legislation and the register governs the registration of secured interest for personal assets. Okay, so we can talk about that a little bit this morning, particularly how it affects business owners.
So what if there was a business owner and they lease out, say, maybe a bobcat or a tractor or something like that? Who's got the responsibility? Because just say they went under, they went bankrupt as the business. The person that's then borrowed it, do they have ownership over it from there?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and that's exactly why I'm talking about this today. So when you have those types of items that you mentioned, so particularly with businesses who might lease or hire out equipment, so we're talking about bobcats, tractors,
any kind of
even cars. There are
Caravans?
companies caravans that you might lease cars out. So you lease it to another body, a person or a company, for them to use, obviously, in their own business. And if their business goes under, how do you then get your asset back? Because it can be quite a valuable asset. You can't just go on site and go, yeah, well, that's mine. I've leased it to company XYZ. Thank you, I'll take it back. It doesn't necessarily work like that.
But when you first get a lease, when you have a lease with someone else, you take their equipment and you pay your money. Don't you sign a contract with them? And isn't that contract an agreement between the company and the people who actually do the leasing to say, this is mine, this is my property, I'm giving it to you to use in return for you paying me a regular payment? Isn't there a piece of paper that everyone's signed to say this is how it works?
It's a valid agreement.
Sometimes there is and sometimes there isn't. But even if there is an agreement, your interest in that particular asset is not secured if there's no interest registered on the Personal Property Securities Register. So yes, you have a contract, and yes, you can fight it out with the liquidator if that business goes under. So if the business goes under, a liquidator will step in or a receiver will step in, and their job, obviously, if the business goes under, because there's a number of creditors that have to be paid out, secured and unsecured creditors, is, okay, what does this business own to sell so we can get cash to be able to pay back the creditors. And in that situation, I can tell you 100% the secured creditors are always priority, and the unsecured creditors are not. Okay.
So they can just take that and that and that and select the items and take it.
Well, the liquidator has first dibs. So the liquidator, as soon as a business goes under, the liquidator will go on site and they possess everything. They take possession of the land or the business, the assets, and then they decide what to do with it. And they usually act very quickly because liquidators know very well that when a business goes under, all sorts of people come out of the woodwork, and they come on site in the middle of the night. They come and grab their assets back before the liquidator can do anything with it. It happens a lot.
Do they?
Yes.
Claim that as theirs.
Yes, and once it's gone, it's gone. So as a company or a person that leases those types of assets, and when I say lease, contract or no contract, you need to go onto the national register called the Personal Property Securities Register and register your interest. So this is the next part to it, and this could be a little bit tricky. So to register an interest, people might think it costs thousands of dollars. Yes. The actual fee, the registration fee you pay, is next to nothing. It's under $50, depending on. It's very minimal. The tricky part and where the fees might be is to get a lawyer to register the interest for you, because it's not an easy thing to do to register the interest.
Okay.
You have to describe the goods, you have to describe the serial numbers, you've got to describe the nature of the goods.
And you may overlook, just doing it yourself, certain detail that you could at least offer them.
And that's the clincher. If you don't register it properly, its class is invalid. So even if it appears on the register and someone searches the register to see if you have an interest, if it's not done properly, the liquidator then comes in and goes, actually, that's an invalid security interest. It's not worth anything. It's my asset. That's exactly why you need a lawyer who understands the personal property securities legislation to register the interest.
And I guess too, you mentioned the word secured. I guess that's an operative word. You've got to secure it.
That's right.
And that's the way you can make it valid?
That's right. So the website I'm talking about is ppsr.gov.au. So the information on that website is very user-friendly for people to jump on, have a bit of a read about what it's all about, which is what I've just talked a little bit about this morning. It gives you information about how to register and what you can register an interest over. But then you've got to actually do it. And I've registered quite a few security interests for clients, and it's tricky, and even some lawyers struggle because it's quite a complex area.
Specialised.
It is. So you can really balls the whole thing up, so to speak, if you don't know how to do it, thinking, oh, my interest is secured, here's my registration, fantastic, sit back, happy days. But if it's not done right, it's as if it was never there.
Cross the T's and dot the I's. It's
Absolutely.
not just a $50 fee.
Yeah.
It's better off spending a little bit of extra money to make sure it's done right.
Well, particularly if the asset's worth, say, over $100,000.
That's
And
right.
some
You're
of this
set to
plant and
lose a
equipment,
lot.
can be worth thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars.
So this is a government website, and
Yes.
it's available to anyone. You can log on at any time. It's
Absolutely,
available to the public.
24/7.
Yep.
You can actually log on at any time, and the website, the register, and that website obviously gives you the register. The other purpose for it is for you to search if there is an interest over an asset you want to buy. Right? So if you're looking to buy a car, or if you're looking to buy a caravan or a camper van, particularly even from a dealer or a non-dealer, from a private person, you go on the register and you search it. Right? You search by registration, you search by serial number, and it tells you if there is a secured interest. So if you're looking to buy something from someone and there's a secured interest, you have to say to them, well, here's a secured interest. Sorry, you've got to release that and get it off the register before I'm going to pay you X amount of money to buy that item.
And how long does this information, how long does it take to get on there? And then when you get to the other end, how long does it take to come off before all the information is up to date?
To search the register, it's very quick. It's actually to search it. To register an interest is different, okay, because it's intricate and you really should have a lawyer do it. You shouldn't do it yourself. But you can navigate the website generally yourself and read it at any time. As I said, it's very user-friendly. It gives you lots of information and helps you understand the purpose of it. So to search an item is very easy. To register an interest, though, this is a dual purpose, takes a lot of time. If I was to register an interest for a client, which I've done before, it could take up to an hour to 2 hours because I've got to make sure I've got the right company name. I've got the right ACN. I've got the right ABN. I've got the right serial number. If I put a wrong digit in,
So that can make the difference. Something simple as a
absolutely,
digit.
yeah,
At all.
it could invalidate it.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah, and then you've got to, under the legislation, if you enter into a hire purchase agreement, under the Act, there are certain timeframes that you have to register the interest, which people don't know. So if you don't do it within that certain time frame, you've actually lost that opportunity. So the point is, once you enter into that arrangement, or you're about to enter into that arrangement, right, get advice before you
It
do
just
it.
seems like you should do this to safeguard yourself.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Is this knowledge usually on offer? Because how are people
Many people in
doing
Australia,
this?
I can tell you this, do not know about this.
Right.
Yeah, and that's why a lot of companies have lost assets to liquidators. In the past, there's been many examples, real life examples. So I hope the listeners take this on board, and if they're in a situation like this, you can register it at any time, unless you're not within those timeframes I've talked about. So if you're in this arrangement, go and see your lawyer straight away and say, hey, should I register an interest? Can you do it for me?
And the answer most definitely should be yes, you should.
Yes.
Could be saving them a lot of grief.
Yes, and a lot of money, definitely. This is Talking Law on Radio 97 with Despina Priala. And just a reminder, if you have a question, a legal question, whether it be a simple one or perhaps something a little more complex, Despina is happy to answer those questions for you. All you need to do is drop us a brief email. Just go to breakfast@radio97.com.au, include a couple of details, and we'll be happy to present the question on your behalf. Just send it to breakfast@radio97.com.au. After the break, we're going to ask the question, if the police stopped you in Queensland and asked to look at your phone, asked for your PIN, are they allowed to do that? That's next.